Welcome everybody to another super somber public alert. This time again is about safety, but now it's about safety on the water. We bring to you a true sad story, a mass tragedy with lots of lives lost. It was about peer pressure and how it relates to safety. There was a captain of a ship. He had a route planned that was safe. He had a time picked out that was a safe time to get there. But he let politics and political issues and social influence him to the point where he decided to do it unsafely. And one cold night, there was an iceberg. And because they were going too fast, they couldn't make the necessary turns and times, and they hit it, and it put a big gouge in the boat, and the boat split in half, and there was this band playing, and they played until the water came up, and like there was these lovers on board, and they went over barely, and one died because they couldn't figure out how to both balance on the same ship, peeps. It was a bad deal. So we're going to talk about peer pressure. Is that what we're talking about today, Amy?
I think if we get into some of the leadership topics, sure, peer pressure as a leader.
And well, actually, that's not what we're talking about today. And you guys might be hearing a new voice to you. Can you please introduce yourself as our guest host today?
Hi, everybody. I'm Amy Roosa. I am a field safety manager for Amerigas, and I've been in safety for, 18 years now. How scary is that?
Awesome. And Amy was kind enough to sit in for Mr. AJ Hanscom. And Roosa, it's like almost related to the Karate Kid.
Oh, I never even thought about that.
Yeah, LaRusso. I mean, Cobra Kai, Karate Kid's like back now. It's like back as being super popular now. So everybody knows Daniel LaRusso again. So
right, I like that.
But you have a martial art background as well, right? Can you tell me a little bit about it?
I did. So I did about 10 years of Salgam Taekwondo through the ATA. I'm a state champion in Iowa, which it was pretty easy to become a state champion when you're literally the only one in your age category for the state.
I hear you.
But I'll take it. I do have a couple of first place medals from tournaments. My specialty was double nunchucks.
Does that mean two at the same time?
In Krav Maga.
Double nunchucks? Is that two nunchucks at the same time?
Yep.
Wow, that seems like it takes a lot of coordination and,
Oh, no, I love it. I still whip them out for when the grandkids come over.
That's awesome. Do people, when they find that out who know you're a safety person, wonder how you could be both? You ever got that?
I think some people are surprised. I definitely get a lot of guys that'll joke that they'll toe the line with me and behave.
Yeah, there you go.
Which is fine.
You should wear your nunchucks on your belt.
Going.
Yeah, if you had your nunchucks on your belt when you were walking around doing audits, that'd be awesome.
I actually had them once in the back of my car as I was dropping off some fall protection gear on the site. And the guys did take them out, and they didn't know how to use them, so I did show a bunch of guys on a construction site.
That's pretty cool.
They got a good kick out of it.
That's really awesome. And, yeah, I'm just guessing that safety compliance went up a hair after seeing the safety person whip out some nunchucks.
Just a little, yes.
Maybe that should be standard issue for all safety people. We should carry some kind of traditional, martial art weapon.
Right.
And we'll have some kind of half-baked excuse of why we have some size on us or something, or a katana. It's for seatbelt safety, to cut the seatbelt to rescue people. That's why I carry my katana.
Okay. I have a mortar knife that is one of those box cutter knives that I have just sitting in my car.
There you go. Well, that's cool. We're glad to have you. And we got some special topics today. We're talking about, safety leadership and then also women in safety. I've been really excited since you decided to come on the podcast and talk about these because, AJ and I are the evil safety dudes, not the dudettes. So having the dudette perspective is really going to be awesome. So I'm excited to talk about that.
Oh, thanks.
Now, do you know why we've started asking all our guest speakers this? Do you know why we are called the evil safety dudes? What's your best guess?
Probably because I've been called the evil safety bleep many, many times. Or just the safety bleep many, many times.
Yeah.
I think there's that stigma when we go onto the job sites that we're just out to get people.
Right.
I think it's a very bad stigma that probably resonates because years before, that's what we were. I mean, 1970 came around, OSHA came out with all these mandates, and employers hired safety people to be the get you guys. And I think we've evolved since then. Especially in the last 18 years, I've really seen more of a growth mindset with safety leaders, that they know they have to be more adaptable, and it's not the I've got you. It's
Right.
more of a, okay, let's identify the issue. Yep, we have an opportunity. Let's fix it and let's move on, because we're all adults at the end of the day, and we got other things to do.
Yeah, so you feel us. You know why we call it, because a lot of people, they don't understand that, they're like, Aaron, you're evil. No, it's just how we're thought of. But yeah, I'm with you. The old school safety cop days should be over, and we should all have been moved into the coaching kind of role, and I see that more and more. I see less and less of the safety cops out there and more of the coaches. So I think that's a good move forward for us safety professionals.
Yeah.
So let's talk about safety leadership. Like, what does that term even mean?
Well, I feel like that can be like a loaded question.
Well, for sure, like 20 definitions, right?
Yeah, because it's really like peeling back an onion for us. There's so many hats that we wear as a safety leadership that we have to balance. We have to be adaptable in our safety leadership, and I think that's a key for me. The way I might talk to my upper leadership team versus my employees is going to be different in how I lead them.
Definitely.
I think you have to be proactive and positive, and you have to anticipate sometimes that everything's not going to happen the way you want it to happen.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so definitely. I like those definitions. Safety leadership, you're a leader in safety, but as far as a defined role, it's all over the place because you're adapting it to the needs, definitely. Yeah. So what do you think makes a good safety leader? What are some qualifications that if you were training somebody, maybe they got some credentials and they're ready to hit their first job as a on-site safety director, safety manager, just any kind of like leader in safety, what kind of tips would you give them?
I would say, and actually I did have interns when I worked at the Iowa DOT.
Okay.
And I always said these two things. You had to have resilience and patience, because at the end of the day, we're sometimes the punching bag, right?
Right, scapegoat.
They're coming at us from the employee aspect of why can't we have something safety-wise, and the upper management aspect of why do you need X, Y, Z, or why do we have a high injury rate? You're like trying to balance those two, and then you have to have empathy.
Right.
On all. I think that was something early on I struggled with, because when I started out as in safety, I was gung-ho, I was arrogant, and I was kind of the gothy cop.
Right.
And it took me being the bottom of the barrel for safety at my store. This was when I worked for Sam's Club Walmart and did safety. And we had an accident where, I don't know if you've been in a Sam's Club store, but, it's a huge store. We had accidents because, everything's involved. You have these upright beams. My club manager turned around and walked right into the beam.
Whoa.
He hit it so hard because he was on his phone. He was distracted. He hit it so hard, it apparently echoed through the building.
Wow.
And his body on camera actually wrapped around the beam. It was kind of funny.
Wow.
But not funny.
Cartoon.
Funny after the fact. And I went home that night because my boss was regional, chewed me out. He's like, you got to fix your recordables. You got to fix this injury rate. What are you going to do? And I was just mad, and got home that night, and I'm venting to my then husband and my nephew. And I was like, I'm just going to go in and just start writing people up. I mean, that's the solution, right? That's what everybody else does.
Right.
And my nephew looked me dead in the eye, and he goes, Aunt Amy, you've always said you have to be proactive. Is that being proactive? And I
Ouch.
just paused that this 8-year-old just said this to me, and I'm like, "You're grounded."
Yeah.
Um, but he was right. I didn't have the empathy that I needed to have, and I didn't have the resilience to look past my ego and my leadership and start changing things. And I literally walked in that next day, and I just created a more proactive environment, a positive environment, and we went. Within that year, we went 1 year accident free, and by the time I left, they were almost at 3 years accident free.
Wow. That's huge.
So we were number one, and we were considered a training club for safety in our practices. And it really was. I learned that the ownership had to be on everybody else, and that I had to just be viewed as the resource
Right.
and the consultant.
I like that. When they look at you as a go-to person to help them live the safety rules versus looking out for you to see if you're there, to see if they're going to do something right or wrong. I think that's big for the safety culture and getting upper management on involved in them pushing it and you as the resource. I really like that. And so just to recap, resilience, patience, and empathy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and empathy is kind of a big deal because, like, it's easy for me to preach a reg, but it's hard sometimes for the employees to live that reg. That regulation may be difficult to actually do with what they do, but me knowing that, you know, being empathetic, I could say, all right, guys, I know what you do. I know this reg is tough to follow. Let's troubleshoot. You know, tell me why this doesn't work. We have the brain power in this room to figure out how to do our job safely and follow this. Let's brainstorm. So, you know, like the whole team approach versus just like, here's the rule, you better do it or else, you know?
Yeah. I think once you start listening to that and you start showing that empathy, it's like true empathy, not just the, I hear what you're saying and I understand you're upset. No, like actually ask the questions, dive in.
Right.
Find out what the true root cause is. Is it really the standard, or is it the equipment, or is it just something else within that subculture that's causing the frustration?
Yeah.
I found many times it was an equipment issue because we were using outdated equipment. Okay, good. Let's go buy new equipment.
It's amazing what you could learn when you just talk to the folks like as humans.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in a position where I was like a safety consultant for hire, I remember getting a case where there was all these eye injuries all of a sudden at this place. All of a sudden, they just have eye injuries. So, you know, I'm charging by the hour, consulting fees. I'm going in there. I solved the case in like 2 seconds. And it was too bad I was charging by the hour. But I always felt like this is lame. Like, why'd they need me? Why didn't they do this? I walked up to a guy who was not wearing his safety glasses where he was supposed to. I said, hey, how's it going? I'm Aaron. I'm here to do a little audit. Why aren't you wearing safety glasses? And he pulls down his earlobe and he shows me this slice and this cut from where he got cut by the safety glasses because the company wanted to save a couple cents and bought some safety glasses without that rubber piece. And when the hard hat pushed down on the safety glass arm, it cut him. And so I go, okay, thank you. And I walked up to the next person not wearing safety glasses. Asked them the same thing. They showed me a cut. I walked to a third person. Why aren't you wearing safety glasses? They showed me the cut. Man, I was like, boom. Man, this is a lame payday for me. But it was so easy. I just had to go and talk to people and just treat them like humans, have that empathy, and got the answer right away. Didn't need a safety expert for that one.
Oh, you just needed a member of that leadership team on that floor asking why.
Yeah. So
sometimes we forget to do that.
So I get the empathy, and I get the resilience, like you kind of said earlier, just because a lot of times, even if we're doing our job perfect, if there is an accident, even if it was unavoidable employee misconduct, like we did everything we're supposed to, at the end of the day, we're getting chewed out or in trouble for that or talking to. Is there any other reason why you think safety leaders need resilience besides like the scapegoat aspect of it?
Yeah, I could probably see that. I've never been used as a scapegoat myself.
Oh, really? Nice.
No, I don't know if it's just my personality, but I keep my receipts very well in email so that people can't do that.
Yeah.
I just lay it out there. I think it's a tough job, and I think a lot of people look at what we do and they're like, "Oh, you're just the safety person.
Right.
You're the safety dude."
Right.
So how hard can your job really be?
Right.
I'm balancing the needs of the business, right? Our profit and loss, our EBITDA, with the needs of OSHA and ANSI, and making sure my workers go home every day.
Yes.
And I might actually be the only person sometimes within a leadership team, within a company, that is thinking of those two things cohesively.
Right.
I can't count the number of times I've been on conference calls and safety never got brought up, or when it does, it's because there's an accident.
Right.
But hey, if we actually took that proactive approach to talk about safety in all those meetings, then a lot of amazing things happen. Before I made it to Amerigas, I worked for Amerigas. I definitely have confused people jumping jobs that sounded like. But Amerigas had this really great practice of talking about safety and how that was going to influence the bottom line and the employees. And because of that, they had a really good safety program.
That's awesome.
And I wasn't even in safety management. I was doing consulting for them as a safety specialist. But I was just impressed by that. They got it. They understood it.
Yeah, I definitely understand the resilience side of it. You talked about managing production and safety and marrying the two. And I think that's really one of the marks of a safety person at a high level, when they're not just barking regs, but they're marrying production with safety. And that's our job at the end of the day, when we're trying to figure out how to do the job, but do it safe. And that's challenging. Now, you used another word, patience. You thought safety leaders should have patience. Why? I mean, what do we got to wait for? Or can't we just get it done? I mean, what do we got to wait for? Why do we need patience as safety people?
Well, because nothing happens overnight, right?
Right.
It was a statistic. I think National Safety Council published this years ago that it was 5 to 7 years to change a safety culture.
That's a big number.
And why I've had some really good success in certain aspects of the safety culture changing it. Nothing happens overnight because there's so many layers you're peeling back within the company, within subcultures. I oversee several states right now, so every state's a little different. Every subculture is a little different. Same thing when I was at the DOT. So you're working with so many variables that it can get frustrating, especially when you want to enact a program, right? When you want to see the safety culture change, but you're going to hit a barrier. And when you do, how are you going to react to it? Are you going to get frustrated and scream? Definitely, I've been there.
Right.
I still have those moments. They're probably more private now than they are an emotional response that everybody gets to see. But I have to keep in the back of my mind that I have this job because I'm, one, passionate about what I do, but that resilience part comes in and that patience part comes in because I can do this for the long haul. I can work to change the culture slowly, and I can work to change the mindset slowly if I have to.
Yeah, I think that's a big, big point. I had a colleague, his safety colleague, and he took a really good paying safety job, and he left because the culture was so bad. He realized how much work he had to do and how long it was going to take him. So he just quit. And I understand, because I consult for a lot of companies. I see companies with zero safety and a bad mindset towards it. Not only do they not have it, they're like, safety? Heck no. They're like, not here. And I understand how it could take years and years to get someone compliant and even longer to best practice. But, yeah, it's kind of our job, right? I mean, if the safety professional is not going to do it, who's going to do it? I mean, we're tasked with getting that culture there. And if you don't have the patience to pull it off with some of these companies that have a bad culture, you're just not going to be effective at your job because it is going to take a long time. I haven't heard that 5 to 7 years. I had a friend go to a safety training recently on safety culture, and she was saying 2 to 3 years, and I was like, I like those numbers a little better, but 5 to
I like
7.
that, but you're going to have a very aggressive
Yeah.
leadership that's going to invest in it.
Yeah. And I think, too, with swapping over a safety culture, it also depends on the circumstance they're in, you know. If it's just like, hey, we're doing good, our records are pretty good, our, you know, lagging indicators are pretty good, but we probably should do this just because, I think there'll be less momentum. I think after a fatality, a big OSHA bust, or losing $1 million contract because your EMR is so high, I think those companies could get on that fast, aggressive track because everybody now sees how important it is. So, you know, but yeah, I think on average, I mean, you're looking at years to get a company that's against safety, has no safety, to the average regular employee is doing things safe and right.
Yep.
All right, so patience, empathy, and that patience is kind of a bad word. That's the hardest one. And resilience. You gotta be tough, man. You gotta be tough. All right, cool. So, what are some? I like to ask this of people that have been got a good experience doing safety. Because in my story, I had no safety background before I got a safety job. You know, I'm a
I
registered.
think that's how we all start, right?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm learning. So my story's not unique. You know, I can't cry, whoa, me. I remember getting hired as a safety guy, and they just said, do safety. All right, go do safety. Here's your office. Here's your computer. Go do safety now. And I didn't even know what that meant. And they couldn't tell me because they didn't know. So I like to ask this question. So like the things you had to bump your head doing, the things you wish you would have known back when you were first starting that you could share with somebody else. Do you have anything that comes to mind? I mean, already the patience, the empathy, and the resilience, telling someone you need these to be good, I think that's already huge. But anything else that just pops out in your mind that you would help someone else with who's just getting into this?
So part of actually the Iowa Women in Safety group and the conference that I did was to actually pull women together to share resources. And that was one of the things that I tell everybody is like, beg, borrow, steal. Don't reinvent the wheel.
Right.
Somebody already has a program out there, or a training, or a PowerPoint, or a template. Network and learn who your resources are in the community, not just National Safety Council or the ASSP or your insurance company, but who else is out there, because that pays dividends back.
Right. Yeah, no, I like that. Now you brought up this conference. What was the name of it?
It's the Iowa Women in Safety Conference.
All right, so am I saying this right? You are the founder of that?
I am co-founder with Barbara Ralston over at Community Health.
That's really cool. So you said one of the reasons why you started it was to get networking going. What else comes out of that besides networking?
So when I first started out in safety, I think I was probably, when I would go to a conference or a training, I was like the only female in the room.
Okay.
I remember taking confined space training, being the only female, putting on the SCBAs to do a confined space rescue, and the instructor kept looking at me going, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. And I just finally looked at him. I'm like, bro, I signed up for this.
Right.
I do what my workers do.
Right.
That is the nature of this job. And then later on, so little backstory. When I worked for the Iowa DOT, I noticed that lack of women in safety and having that connection with them. But when I was at Amerigas and I was able to consult, I started actually meeting a bunch of women. And a lot of these women were entry level. They didn't know where their resources were. I was constantly sending them some stuff, or they wanted to expand that knowledge and see growth within the community. As it stands right now, from a 2019 report that the ASSP put out, in our profession for safety, there's only 22% women.
Wow.
And that is I had to break this down. That is a wider gap than the general industry.
Wow.
Just out there. So think about that, 22%. Now we're growing, but it's going to take, again, patience, resilience, years before we see more of an even number there. I think within like the United States, it's we lag behind in leadership roles for women. It's 21% compared to China, that's at 51%.
Wow.
Yeah, so we have a lot of work to do. And so David Hughes, who puts on the Cookwood Safety Conference here on this side of Iowa, I might be a thorn in his butt. I don't know. I'll have to ask him because I kept begging him. I'm like, let me have a women's session. I'll do the speaking. And one day he's just like, go talk to Barbara. And so, because Barbara helps with all this stuff for the community college and the safety conference they did, we sat down and talked, and like 5 minutes later, we're like, we're doing this.
Nice.
And then I'm like, how do we do this? How do we start from scratch? My boss at the time, Tracy McDowell with Amerigas, was very supportive in me taking on the initiative. I found the vendors. We got the venue through the school. The first year we decided to do it for free. And I'm like, come on, bring me 10 people. You know, that's what I want. I had 60 women sign up that first year. Nice.
That's a big.
It is.
I mean, for safety, and especially, you know, of a group of women versus, you know, group of guys and gals. Like, I've been to conferences with less than that of men and women. So to get 60 gals together that are involved in safety, that's a screaming success. Yeah. Yeah. And that was your first year out of the gate?
First year. And then last year we had COVID, which we were able to do some of that virtually. And then we social distanced within the school. So we had multiple rooms and everybody had their own 6-foot table. And we made it work, and we did the bare minimum that year. This year is the first year we're actually, I basically like handed it off to the school to give the conference sustainability. So Barbara and Cookwood now own that. And I sit on the board with some of the women that stood up the first year and were like, we want help. What do you need from us? And I'm like, oh, I definitely need help because it can't just be two of us doing this.
Right.
So this year we have a really great lineup of speakers. We have Dr. Selena Perlman, who is an IO psychologist. She's going to be our keynote.
Now, just a second. I've heard you talk about, are you saying I and O, like the two letters?
Industrial occupational psychology.
Okay, so I've heard you talk about that in a very positive light. So just real quick, pardon the interruption. What is that? Industrial
occupational psychology. I'm going to butcher this so bad, which is funny because I'm actually enrolled to do this. I'm going to try to get my master's in this.
Well, I should ask you after a semester then, but, you know, this would be good enough for now.
It's balancing the inner workings of an organization, basically. How do you get everybody to work cohesively? How do you get everybody to feel like their voice is heard? And how do you get all that to move towards the target of, you know, whether it's profit or growth or, you know, all those things. It's that.
Nice.
I just recently fell in love with it over the last like year and a half. And Dr. Selena Perlman was one of those because she came to our conference last year, was the closing keynote, and I'm hearing her speak, and I'm like, I want to be her when I grow up one day.
Nice. That's cool to have that. So did you feel like she was saying a lot of things that maybe have been answers you were looking for as far as how do you get people to do this or why do people do that? I mean, I imagine with psychology, that's what she's looking at.
Well, it's almost like a blueprint for what we're doing as safety people, right? There's so much psychology behind what we have to do. We're looking at human behavior, right? Every single person on an individual level, we all act differently, right? We all have different belief systems and value systems. And then we shove everybody into a building or a job site for 8 to 10 hours a day. And we expect all those different value systems and belief systems to cohesively work together. It doesn't work, right? It's like going to a football stadium and seeing the Hawkeyes, which go Hawks, going up against the Cyclones, and the fans going at it, right? Like, look at those games. That's my analogy. That's the best I can do today.
No, that's awesome.
I think the more that we see psychological safety coming to the forefront, for our industry and for our profession, we really need to be ahead of it. And that's part of the reason why I wanted her to be the keynote and keep coming back for that, because I think once we understand human behavior a little bit more, we can really actually get that 5 to 7 years or 2 to 3 years down
Right.
to make that change in the safety culture.
I think that's huge. So now you got me intrigued because I've always loved psychology. I spent 10 years working in locked psychiatric units as a adolescent nurse, psychiatric adolescent nurse, and I've always loved the mind.
Oh, wow.
And psychology was always one of the things that I gravitated towards in school. And, you know, you see it dabbled a little bit mixed with safety. You know, like once an employee knows it's wrong and they do it anyway, then we call it, well, it's behavioral. It's not because they didn't know. So now it's a different category, so, which is a worse category. They're choosing not to do it. But then it's like, well, why aren't they doing it? You know, so you're actually having to be like a psychologist sometimes and, you know, counseling people. And it's like you're getting them on the couch, you know, right there in the plant. You're like, why are you not locking this out correctly? You know you're supposed to. I have your name on this roster from last week. I trained you. So why are you not doing it? And sometimes it's simple as it's too fast, you know, to cheat, or sometimes there's a underlying reason, and sometimes they think it's a safety reason. I've had people not tie off before in scissor lifts because they thought it was unsafe so they could jump out, you know. But yeah, so I think psychology is big. Well, that's really cool that you started that conference, and I wanted to talk about the aspect of it of networking. And, you know, I have gotten a lot of good resources from some of those things that you've said, insurance carriers, obviously National Safety Council, you know, ASSP, different things like that. But I've gotten a ton from colleagues as well. Just like, you know, I remember this one guy, he's a safety teacher at University of St. Louis, and safety guy, and the videos that he would give me, you know, when we were sitting together in a class together, those were like priceless. You know, back then you weren't always just downloading stuff off the internet, you know, those crazy safety videos that you could put in your PowerPoint and curriculum, you know, just like when you have a colleague and you say, hey, anybody got a PowerPoint on this, or anybody have a policy on this, anybody have a form, like a safety disciplinary action write-up. So having people that do this and have done it to network with is really, really a big deal. And those, they don't charge you most of the time. I mean, I've never had any of the colleagues be like, yeah, I'll send you a form for $50. You know, it's always like, boom, there it is in your inbox, you know, and you got to modify it, you know. But yeah, that networking and getting that together is good. I want to talk more about women in safety. Those statistics were surprising to me because I work with a ton of women in safety. Maybe it's just in my neck of the woods. We have female OSHA compliance officers. I got a ton of female safety directors that run a lot of these plants in my town. So I work with probably equal 50-50 or slightly more female, but maybe we're just in a cool pocket. But one thing
we're in Iowa.
Yeah. One thing I have heard, though, I've heard women in safety positions hire me to go do something, and they say, I want you to do it because they'll listen to you because you're a guy. I can't get them to listen to me because I'm a female. Have you ever come across that?
I experienced it.
Okay.
I especially early on, I had to learn that I could be me on a job site. And if you know me well enough, so if there's anybody that knows me that's listening to this, they're probably like, yeah, we know Amy. She can get out there and actually, you know, talk to the guys, and she's fine. But early on, I had people in leadership positions tell me, I think you might want XYZ to go do this because, you know, he can get it done because the guys will listen to him because he's a man.
Right.
And my response back to that was, then why did you hire me?
Right.
What does he bring to the table that I'm not? And I had quite the reverse when I started getting out there, and I stopped listening to those people because guys on the job sites, they would come up to me. I sat on the back of my truck one day with donuts and brand new PPE, didn't say anything when I pulled up. The guys didn't know who I were or who I was, and they just trickled in, and I introduced myself. They took a donut, and then they're like, so what's all that PPE for? And I'm like, well, what do you need?
Right.
Just to get the conversation started. And then I would ask questions. Have I definitely had to prove myself that I'm capable of providing them the knowledge they need to be safe? Absolutely. Going back to that confined space, there is not one job that I have ever taken on where I have not been side by side to the workers on the front line.
Nice.
I think that's really important, whether you're a guy or a girl. We can get so focused on safety and being behind our desk, we forget to go out. And the only way I've ever found that I can resolve issues is to be out on the front line. I've been with Amerigas now for 8 months, and, first month, my director had me out there slinging cylinders in an ACE truck with the drivers.
Nice.
In the middle of winter in snow. I learned that I needed to buy a good pair of Carhartts.
Right, for sure.
And I got to learn a lot of the ergonomics and what, the guys' pains were, concerns were. Same thing with the DOT. I got out on the job site, and I got to see what they were lacking in equipment or what they would need in better equipment to make those improvements. And once I started doing that, I never had a problem. If anything, I had an influx of people in my email box or on my phone calling me going, okay, so I know you talked about XYZ, but now we have a question on this. Or they would call me. My favorite one was, hey, hypothetical question for you. I'm like, this is not hypothetical, buddy. What is going on? Let's just fix this.
I want to ask you about, is there any positives that you've seen from a woman's take on safety that, is maybe a benefit?
I hate to say this part because it always just sounds kind of corny when I say it, but like we as women, we do have more of a nurturing nature.
Okay.
We might have a little bit more patience.
Right.
And maybe that helps us a bit. I don't know. I've never really been able to dissect that. I know we talked about it at the conference before, but I'm hoping you're going to be there because you're going to be one of the panel guests.
Okay.
If I have my way.
October 21st.
Yeah. Because I think you'll bring a neat perspective to the panel that we're doing. But when you see a lot of these women, they're headstrong Iowa women that we don't take flack, but we're there to provide resources. We just needed to know where our resources were. And whether it's a Women in Safety conference or a general safety conference, the one thing that those conferences also bring is that validation that we're not crazy.
Right.
With being driven up the wall with safety stuff. Like once you meet other people in safety, it's like, I'm not crazy.
Yes.
I'm not the only one with these problems. Oh my goodness. Like other people have the exact same problems as I do. It's not just me. I'm not doing something bad.
Right. Yeah. I mean, maybe one day there'll be some clear advantages that people could point out. Everybody's personality is different. So, somebody might relate to somebody differently than they would somebody else for various reasons, Mm-hmm. So yeah, advantages, disadvantages. But yeah, I always thought it was sad when a woman in safety would say, Aaron, I hired you to go do this because I'll listen to you. And so I liked your approach, how you didn't accept that. You got out there, you got your hands dirty, you got out there on the front lines and you earned respect. And you shouldn't always have to do that. But I see that, I've definitely seen that as a problem in the construction world and general industry world, is people not taking that knowledge from a woman versus where they just will automatically from a man. And it's not fair because, like say, I remember being a brand new forklift instructor. Mm-hmm. Them just assuming I knew what I was talking about because I'm a guy. And I'm like, no, I suck. I'm brand new. You want to see me operate this forklift? I suck. But automatically you take it from me because of my gender, whereas a female instructor, they might give her a hard time. Well, let's see you drive it, So I definitely see challenges. And I don't know if it's fair to say that there would be more challenges in construction versus general industry. Do you dabble in both industries?
I have dabbled in both. So when I worked at the DOT, obviously, we're on the road. We have construction sites. Working with Amerigas consulting for companies for their safety, definitely construction and general industry. I think what it comes down to is background noise. Did not mean to do that. I think that we can play into stereotypes. I'm not saying it isn't out there. I do run into, the old boys club pretty often. But having jumped careers in the path that I've jumped, which was never really intentional, what I can say is that sometimes we can be our own worst enemies, and we play into the stereotype being out there. And if somebody is saying, you go out there because they're going to listen to you because you're a guy, that should cause pause for that leader to look at that and be like, no, I'm the leader.
Right.
I have the problem. I need to go out there and correct it, and I need to discover what is going on behavior-wise that they're not communicating back with me, and what am I doing that's not allowing them to communicate with me.
Yeah, it's a good problem-solving approach, and just taking initiative, and that, that's true for all of us, just as general problem-solving and being a leader. Great advice there. I've been on a lot of construction sites, spent years as a safety guy building ethanol plants. And, I think the sexual harassment issue has toned down a hair from the day of the cat calls, the gal walking by the construction site. That was always in TV shows growing up. I don't, there's a guy.
I've never been catcalled. I do pride myself on this. Or I guess maybe it's just me, but I've never been sexually harassed on a job site.
Well, that's good.
Never once.
That's good. Especially with nunchucks.
I don't know if I've just been lucky or what. Or maybe it's just me. I'm not the type, but it's just, no, I get out there and I don't know if that, again, is like a stereotype. Oh, I'm going to go out to the job site. I might be sexually harassed. Yeah, you could. Or for me, I don't know if I just give out that flare that that's not going to happen. I'm here to do a job. It could be tons of different things on that for variables.
Well, that's a good testimony of where the construction industry has come from. Because, stereotypically, it's kind of a rough group sometimes, and especially if you go in those porta pots, when you read the writings on the wall, it's X-rated.
Yeah,
it's definitely
I read them.
Yeah, they may not be saying it anymore, but there's a bunch of foul stuff in there.
I've been on construction sites where I'm like, I need to use the restroom, and the guys have actually gone and cleaned it for me, which I thought was like the nicest thing. Which also relates to how often are you not cleaning your bathroom? Let's talk about that on a job site.
Yeah, we got some bloodborne pathogen issues here. Yeah. I've seen on job sites, we're going into the reality side of safety, but on construction sites where they had, porta pots, unisex, just there's the porta pots, but then a female would get hired and they would get a pink one, and they'd have a lock, and then she would have a key and nobody can use it. And I always thought that was nice. I don't know if that's condescending but I want my own porta pot. I know that's for sure.
So, okay, very funny story, but I was in a building once where it's an all-man facility. They had a female restroom. I went into the restroom. There was 2 stalls. I knew I was the only female in the bathroom. I sat down. I looked down, and the stall next to me, I see boots, and I realized there was a guy in there popping a squat. And after that facility was always locked when I showed up. So I appreciate when there are locks on a door when it's an all-man facility.
Let's talk about personal protective equipment in regards to the manufacturers making stuff for women, because being a guy, I never thought twice about it because everything always fit me. From steel-toe boots to harnesses to hard hats to safety glasses to safety vests. I never thought of an issue, but then having female safety colleagues go, oh, how cool is it where I could get steel-toe boots now, steel-toe tennis shoes now, a vest that fits me, and it opened my eyes to some of those issues. Have you run across any of that in your experience?
So we just did a conference with Radiance for the Iowa Women in Safety Group on female PPE. So obviously there's been PPE issues, right? Because ANSI came out with a standard, but it was a standard for men.
Okay.
And if you actually ever look at my LinkedIn account, I made a mistake of calling out Radiance when they were talking about a high vis shirt, like, oh, I really wish this was in women's PPE. And they're like, Amy, we have a whole entire line. And I'm like, oh, we should talk.
Nice.
PPE has been a struggle for women in the industry. I think in the last 5 years, though, you've seen it really emerge. You have Xena footwear that has come out, Juno Jones footwear. I think it's Dove clothing that's women's Carhartt style jeans
nice.
for like the workplace. And Radiance has come out with a huge line, which I wear very regularly and I love. But yeah, we need that stuff tailored to us. It was the first conversation we had as a group in the Iowa Women in Safety Conference. That was a pretty heated discussion. We had, and this was my own fault, we had a manufacturer come up and talk about PPE. And he's talking about all the latest tech that's coming out. And I realized I'd made a mistake in this category, not prepping him that the women were going to ask, where's our PPE? And he did such a good job.
Oh, nice.
Because I sent him up there to the guillotine without having realized it. But, for women, we're all different sizes, right? Some of us are bigger chested than others. Some of us have bigger booties. Some of us have bigger stomachs. PPE has traditionally not been functional for us.
Okay.
And that's a problem. And what I've seen in the last 5 years is a lot of companies putting women behind the product development, like Radiance.
Makes sense.
Or women like Anastasia Kraft with Xena, who was working job sites and got sick of the shoes we were wearing and decided to just go off and design something that's fashionable and comfortable. And now that's exploding, and that I think will help get more women into the safety profession. I mean, I remember my first pair of boots were a men's size 8 that I wore out on a construction site for 3 years until I actually found a good pair of women's boots. But even then, it was slightly tailored to look feminine, and you slap pink on it. And I swear,
Right.
the manufacturers hearing this, stop slapping pink on things and calling it female.
My wife
We
hates
don't
the color
like-
pink.
Yeah.
I mean, she doesn't like
so
pink.
it's coming a long
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. Yeah, if you just put
I-
pink on it, she would be less inclined to buy it. She does not like pink.
Yeah. No, I don't like pink either, but I do have some pink PPE, but I need high vis. I need some black, and yeah, throw out whatever colors you want, but don't keep always throwing out pink and thinking we're going to be okay with it, because we're not.
Have you seen it trickle down into all aspects of PPE, like gloves?
Welding. So I think it's Black Stallion and Miller makes some welding women's clothing, because women welders is a growing trend.
Right.
We tend to be better welders because we have a more steady hand.
Nice.
In terms of gloves for welding, I don't know if there's anything out there for that. But I think you're going to continue seeing a lot of pushback on women in the industry on manufacturers to produce.
Because even spats, if we're talking about welding, there's a lot to welding PPE, and just making sure that it all fits, because PPE that doesn't fit is a hazard in and of itself.
Oh, yeah. How many times I've caught myself on a doorknob because I was wearing a men's high-vis shirt.
Right.
It's incredible. If I had $1 for every time I did, I'd probably be retired. That or even fall protection. Now we have smaller fall protection. We have women's harnesses that, cross over in an X format, so it's not as uncomfortable as a female.
I gotcha.
But it takes forever to get a standard changed, right? That's why, like, the groups like the ASSP, Women in Safety and all, those are the people that help push back on the safety community and the manufacturers and ANSI. And where I'd like to see the Women in Safety go is do more of that too, and keep advocating that we're growing. We're not going to just be 22% of our industry anymore. We want even ground. And I think as employers are more keen to have a diverse, inclusive workforce, they're going to see the benefit in that. But we also have to, at the same time that we're growing as a profession, have the manufacturers grow with us.
Right.
So that it's on even ground.
Yeah. Well, that's good that there's manufacturers that have started that, and hopefully it continues, and it's just trickling down to everything. I mean, I just got a million questions, like even safety glasses. Are they all? You always have to look like the Terminator, or or
Right?
I remember one time I was on site, and there was this guy, and it was safety glasses required. It was outside work, so everybody had dark safety glasses on. And this guy, it just didn't look right to me. I got a little closer. Something's not right. I got a little closer, and I had it. I'm like, I know what it is. He forgot his dark safety glasses, so he put his sister's sunglasses on, which was like the really big style. I don't know if that's still in style, but like the J-Lo style, like big ones.
Yeah.
And he's wearing that on the construction site and trying to get away with it because they were big. And so we got him some real ones, some ANSI approved one, but just made me think about styles. And because what I've learned with guys is they're more likely to wear safety glasses, for instance, if they like the style of it.
If they look cool.
Yeah, for sure. The brand name. You give a guy a pair of Smith & Wesson safety glasses, Harley Davidson safety glasses, they're on board.
Carhartt.
Yeah, they're on board because of the brand. That's cool. Smith & Wesson make guns, and that's who makes my safety glasses.
And if you polarize them, they're going to wear them out fishing, too.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I love me some polarized ones. But I imagine it's going to be the same in women. They're going to want a certain style, a certain look. It's going to change with the trends and the fashion, and why we should capitalize on that, because to me, if it's comfortable, if they like the way it looks, they're going to be more inclined to wear it. So why not go for bring it to the 22nd century, whatever century we're in.
Make it practical too, and make sure it does all the hazards. I'm just now seeing FR clothing for women coming out in like overalls that actually fit properly. But more important, overalls that actually have pockets. Like the first prototype I saw of coveralls for FR for women had one pocket.
That's lame.
But then you look at the men's, and they got like 20 pockets.
That's
and I'm
lame.
like, why do we not get pockets? Like, we could resolve half of our unhappiness if we just gave women pockets in the workplace. So we have a phone, we have a notepad too. We got to have a place to put all that.
Right.
So the design's coming out. It's going to take some time, and I think in the next probably 3 years, we're going to see it really explode. At least that's my hope.
Yeah, it could be something for a PP manufacturer to really set themselves apart and get ahead of the game and do the right research, get the right players on board. Definitely have women in the designing, get them involved in the testing and get ahead of it and make a name for themselves. It could be a really cool thing. So I really, really enjoyed you on the show today. I really appreciated the fresh take on women in safety. I really appreciated your take on safety leadership development. Thank you for coming on the show. Do you have any final words or any final things you want to share? Anything coming up that's real important you want the people to know about?
Well, you're definitely going to come to the Women in Safety and be on my panel. I have to drag you kicking and screaming.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Definitely, the Women in Safety Conference is coming up October 22nd or 21st, sorry. You can go to Iowa Women in Safety, type in Google. It's at Kirkwood Community College if you want to register. It's like $40, so it's super cheap for a day of networking. You don't have to be a woman to attend. You can be a guy too. We're all inclusive. You might actually get some good takeaways, and there is a professional development track to that. I'm talking about balancing your work-life balance and making sure that, not spending 70 hours a week at a job, taking care of yourself. And then, overall, thanks for having me, and hopefully we can talk again soon. And I have ideas for people that I think you would love to interview.
Nice. And I like that topic because, you think of cops and nurses and that being doctors, that being a struggle, but the balance. And I think that's even that's definitely applicable to all genders. And but I think it took someone that's not a guy to think of that. Someone to think about, the balance of life and how important it is to not devote your whole life to a job as far as overall happiness in life. So that's a really good topic because I know safety people that are worked to death. They don't want to work over 40, but they're made to. It's just, and things come up, and before you know it, 60, 70 hours gone by,
Yeah.
It's like,
And
go home.
I don't know about you, but I have a really good marriage, and I love my husband, and I want to see him and spend time with him. And, you know, if you can't figure out how to give your own self a daily balance, what's going to happen, you know?
Yeah, balance is
I've been
important.
there. I've had that personal experience, and I'll be sharing that story at the conference.
Nice.
Which preview to that is I basically was sitting at my computer after averaging about 60, 65 hours a week, and I started seeing prisms in my eyes for about 20 minutes. I thought I was having a stroke.
Huh.
And after that and going and talking to my doctor and realizing how stressed I was, I made some big changes in my life, and it's been for the best. Still getting my work done,
Right.
but I'm taking care of myself now.
Well, that's awesome. Good closing final thoughts. So thank you so much for coming on the show. For AJ Hanscom being absent, for Aaron Iacino, and for Amy, we are the evil safety dudes and dudettes. Until next time, everybody, stay safe.